All right, welcome everybody. This is our first attempt at an audio lecture. I am sorry I'm not able to be with you today. I'm off at science teacher camp, being really nerdy probably. But while I'm gone, I hope you will take the time to listen to this entire presentation. If you go on to 2-year or 4-year college, I think there's a good chance that you will be using online video lectures at some point in your career. It's a little bit different than what you may be used to, so this is why I want to kind of practice with this format. I'm going to lecture all the way through, but you should stop whenever you need to, especially if you're writing things down. You can stop whenever you need to, repeat, rewind. This is the advantage of video, that you can stop and replay things as often as you need to, or you can, as you're reviewing later, you can go back and go to just the one part that you need. So please take advantage of that. Whatever you're taking notes on, go ahead and get that out, please. And we're going to talk about the accessory structures of the skin. Last week we talked about the different layers of the skin, from the epidermis, the 5 sublayers of that, and the dermis. And now we're going to talk about some of the accessory structures. These are all things, probably the most visible organs of the body. The integumentary system tends to be the system that is most easy to see. Your skin, your hair, your nails, those are very easy to see and identify people with. So first thing we're going to talk about is hair. It is characteristic of all mammals. You may have learned that in previous biology or zoology classes. Hair is characteristic of all mammals. All mammals have hair. And our hair covers the entire body except the palms of your hands, the soles of your feet, and certain portions of the external genitals, which I'm sure you can probably figure out what those are. If not, ask your parents. So pause here if you need to make note of this. You don't have to write everything word for word. You can write down the information that you need. So pause here if you need to, and then when you're ready, come back. Each hair has 3 layers. You can see kind of in this diagram down here the 3 layers of each individual hair. The outermost portion is called the cuticle. It's made up of several layers of overlapping scale-like cells. So you can see this outer layer is the cuticle here, cuticle here and here. And again, these have the scales that sort of overlap it. If you take your hair, if you take one strand of hair and hold it out straight out from your head, and you run your fingers along the length of the hair going one direction, it will feel smooth. And if you run it the other direction, it will feel rougher. That's because when you run it away from the head, your fingers are going with the direction of the scales. When you run it backwards, you're going against the direction of the scales, and that's why it feels rough. So that's the cuticle. That's the outermost portion. When you dye your hair, when you perm it, when you do anything to it, most of the time you are affecting only the cuticle, the outer portion. The middle portion is called the cortex. This is the main portion of the hair. It's made up of elongated or long cells that form flattened fibers. Hair dye will absorb through the cuticle into the cortex. That's where the melanin is naturally found. And cortex, you're going to see cortex multiple times in anatomy. Cortex is simply a word meaning the layer that is immediately below the surface. So in this case, the cuticle is the outermost surface, and right beneath that is the cortex. The very most inner layer is called the medulla. That's the central part of the hair. It's made up of cells with many different sides, and there's often air spaces in the medulla between the cells. Again, you're going to see cortex and medulla in multiple different contexts. You have your cerebral cortex and the medulla oblongata in the brain. You have the renal cortex and the renal medulla in the kidney. Same kind of structure in the adrenal glands as well. So cortex just means the outer layer closest to the surface, and the medulla is the innermost layer. So you can see in this diagram that cuticle provides an outer covering or protective shell. the cortex and medulla make up the inner hair shaft, and that gives the hair its strength. So again, pause here if you are still writing, or if you want to draw yourself a diagram of the different layers of the hair. I don't think it's on the coloring sheet that you have, so if you want to make yourself a little drawing, you can. And then come back when you are ready. The anatomical parts of the hair, the shaft is going to be the part that you can see that comes out of the skin. So whether you have long hair or short hair, the part that is visible is going to be the shaft. The root is the invisible portion that is found, that goes all the way through the layers of the epidermis to the stratum germinativum, which, if you remember from last week, is the deepest, most important layer of the skin. It's the only layer where the cells are actively dividing, and the only layer that can regenerate other layers. So the shaft is the visible portion and the root is the invisible portion. The hair follicle, you may have heard people saying when they pull out a hair, they pull out the follicle too. The hair follicle is a tube within the epidermis that contains the root of the hair. And then finally, the erector pili muscle, pili meaning hair, erector meaning raising. The erector pili muscle is what causes the hair to stand up. So if you get goosebumps on your skin when you're cold or scared, that's those erector pili muscles contracting and causing the hair to stand up. So moving on from hair, and again, stop if you need to. If you're writing things down, pause and then continue when you're ready. Moving on from hair, there's a few other accessory structures that we call them in the integumentary system. First one is nails. Nails are modified epidermal cells. They're made of keratin, just like all the rest of the integumentary system, or much of the integumentary system. If you look at your nail, the white crescent-shaped part that's kind of shaped like a moon, that's closest to the proximal end of the nail, so closer to the palm of the hand. That white crescent is called the lunula. It looks white because there is air mixed in with the keratin, so that's the same reason the tips of your nails look white. That air mixed in there gives it a white color. The nail body is the visible part of the nail, and the nail root is the part of the nail body which attaches to the nail bed. The nail bed is the part of your fingers that the nail grows out of. So body, the part that you can see; root, the part that's attached to the nail bed. The nail bed is the part of the finger that your nail grows from. Your nails grow approximately 1 millimeter per week, but your fingernails do grow faster than your toenails, which you've probably noticed just throughout your life as you've clipped your nails, or if you get manicures or pedicures. Typically the toenails will grow slower than the fingernails. Sebaceous glands are special glands that are found along the walls of hair follicles. They produce a substance called sebum, and it lubricates your skin surface and keeps it soft and relatively waterproof. It also is what makes your skin shiny, particularly during puberty. An overproduction of sebum is what gives some people very, very shiny skin. Sebum production, as you may have guessed, increases at puberty, and that's what causes acne. It decreases as you get older, so in old age, sebum production has gone way down, and that's why older people tend to have very dry skin. This diagram here, you have clear skin the way it's supposed to be. Here's the sebum gland, or the sebaceous gland right here. The yellow stuff is the sebum. If the exit point of the hair gets plugged up, like as in this one here, you get a blackhead. The sebum kind of flows up and plugs that hole that the hair should be coming out of, so that sebum is trapped. It becomes a blackhead. If it gets even worse, you get an infective follicle. This is where you start getting pimples and zits and pustules, at the more inflamed kind that may actually be painful. So acne, if you or anybody you know struggles with acne, unfortunately they have their overactive sebaceous glands to thank for that, and they are they're hormonally controlled, so that's why the activity tends to change during puberty and also during old age as the hormone levels change. Those are sebaceous glands. And we also have sweat glands, which you are probably very familiar with. Sweat glands are simple tubular glands found over most of the body. You can see in this picture here that it kind of coils up around itself, and the only exit is at the surface of the skin on the epidermis. Your sweat glands are most numerous on the palms and soles of your feet. If you think about when you get nervous, where's the first place that starts to sweat? A lot of times it's going to be the palms of your hands. The secretory portion, is located deep in the dermis. So again, this part that is all coiled up, this is the part that secretes, that creates the sweat, and it's in the dermis. The excretory duct then comes up through the dermis into the epidermis and finally lets out onto the skin surface. There are two different kinds of sweat glands. There's exocrine and acrine glands. We're going to talk more about that when we talk about the endocrine system, but two different types of sweat glands. Only one type smells. That's the kind in your armpits and the kind in your genitals. Though that's the kind that smells, or that creates sweat that smells. That's where bacteria tend to grow. Sweat by itself is odorless. It's not supposed to smell, but if bacteria start to grow in that warm, moist, typically dark environment, again in your armpits and your external genitalia, that is what causes the smell that we know as body odor or BO. Delicious, I know. And the last one, ceruminous glands. The book doesn't talk a ton about them, but they are accessory structures of the integumentary system. Ceruminous glands are specialized sweat glands, and they produce the wax that is found in your ear. If you mix together sebum and sweat and dead skin cells, you get cerumen or earwax. It's very delightful. There's two types of earwax. There's the dry, flaky kind that's usually kind of ashy gray or white in color. And then there's the moist kind. Moist is an awful word. There's the moist kind that is typically more honey-colored or brown and sticky. The type of earwax you have a lot of times depends on your ethnic background. So go and check that out. Or don't, because it's earwax and not particularly fun. So those are the accessory structures of the skin, the parts of the integumentary system. Once you finish listening through this lecture and taking notes, you can go to the coloring sheet and color the structures accordingly. If you read the descriptions on the sheet, they will give you clues as to which part is which. I will also post an answer key on Schoology so you can check your work before you color and before you turn it in. So if you have listened to this entire lecture, congratulations and thank you. Go ahead on the coloring sheet, put your favorite ice cream flavor at the top of the page so that I know you listened to this entire lecture. And there will be a small but nice reward for you upon my return. Thank you so much. If you have any questions about the lecture and you can't wrap your head around it even after listening to it a few times, feel free to email me absolutely at any time and I will get back to you. I will be back on Wednesday and we can go over this content at that point. So thank you very much. I don't know how to make this stop. There we go.